Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm Jose.
And we've come back from seeing Rampage. We tried twice to see it. The first time the screening was really buggered up. It was the same problem that happened at the death of Stalin, but they just were completely unable to fix it. So we saw another screening instead, which was at the Limax.
Yes.
So it was better.
It was better.
But nonetheless, it took us an hour and a half to fucking see it.
Yeah. So, but we should say how nice the manager of Cineworld was. So, you know, on the one hand, we arrived at the cinema and the thing was unwatchable. The screen kept pixelating in front of our eyes, right? Like, so, and entire areas of the screen were pixelated and you just couldn't see anything.
Yeah, we're just sort of covered in this red digital. There was something going on.
Yeah, it was like giant.
It was blue and red and rubbish.
Giant pixels. But this time, it's happened before. And, you know, they haven't been very helpful. But this time, they tried to fix the problem. They couldn't fix the problem. You know, so at least they upgraded us to IMAX and kind of, you know, the manager treated us very well. So
yeah, he did. He also he replaced my snacks.
Yes. Which was, you know, a fortune.
I barely got to eat any of them, you know. You're waiting for the film to start to eat them, really. And the film didn't really start, so...
Yeah, so anyway, we got to see it in 3D IMAX, which, you know, is was better. Though not good enough for me. I really disliked
the presentation or the film?
No, the presentation was lovely, actually.
Right.
You know, it's kind of the film. But first I want to hear all your enthusiasms, because I can tell
I had
how
a good
much
time.
you enjoyed it.
I mean, I didn't have an amazing time, but I had a good time. I think it's a film that's quite honest about what it is. So we'll just say that the Rampage is based on... or it's a kind of intellectual property that's drawn from a series of video games, apparently, which are a series that I wasn't aware of. It's a 1986 arcade game, Rampage. You actually see it in some shots. You see it's as a Easter egg or whatever. It's in the background. The actual arcade unit. The video games apparently are I don't know them. Apparently they're very, very simple. They are some big monsters run around cities smashing things up. You play the monsters.
Right.
That's pretty much it.
Well, that's the film.
And that is the plot of the film. So Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, is a gorilla primatologist. He hangs around with gorillas and sort of communicates with them, teaches them to sign and stuff. And he's sort of a bit of a conservationist rescue guy. He's an all-round good bloke. And meanwhile, evil people are developing a genetic thing that, when released as a gas and inhaled by a chimp, makes it get very, very big and strong and all the other things, and very aggressive.
Yeah, they go to some trouble to describe what this genetic mutation is. So basically, kind of, they take genes from various animals and kind of like bring them together, really.
Yes.
So, you know, it's not just that a gorilla becomes bigger, you know, and more stronger and so on. It's that they also develop other powers.
Yeah, they can do. Yeah, it's kind of intentionally vague. It's actually based on a genuine genetic technology called CRISPR. It's name checked also all over the place in the film. And the film actually goes to some effort to say that what CRISPR does in real life is allow you to edit genes one at a time.
Yes.
And what this particular scientist has done is find a way to enable that to propagate throughout an entire organism. So you can give some CRISPR thing to a chimp, and its whole thing is just now it starts growing.
Yeah.
So, you know, actually, I think that there's a certain level of respect for the science there. It's like the film delineates...
Oh, please.
No. All I'm saying is the film delineates this is where the science ends and the stupid begins.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of stupid.
There's lots of stupid in this film.
Yeah,
this film is all about stupid.
But I think there's actually a real kind of honesty. Like, I like that the evil guys... There's two evil guys. There's Maylin Ackerman and her little wimpy sort of brother. And their whole thing is a very stupid plan about let's... make these animals massive, draw them to Chicago, where we can hopefully kill them and then like sell their stuff. It's really dumb, but I like the fact that there's no thing of we believe we're doing the right thing. None of that. You're not asked to sympathise.
But I also thought I hated them.
Oh yeah.
And I thought they were really badly played. So, you know, kind of, the premise was simple and so on, but it was done without any elegance or wit or, you know, and actually, it was such bad performances, really. Like,
yeah.
You know, it was like, however you think of a bad movie silent acting, you know, this is worse, really. This is just like kind of unbelievably bad.
It's rubbish.
So I was bored.
Yep.
You know, and I found it stupid, and I found it vulgar, and I found it an indictment of contemporary American culture. Not to put too fine a point on it, but it is characteristic. I remember seeing Beyonce at the Super Bowl, right? And, you know, you need thousands of dancers, and it was all militaristic, and there was formations and marches, and it was all loud, you know, and military and explosion. And this reminds me a little bit of that, you know, as a means of talking about something that is indicative of American culture at large, right? Which is, you know, this is a film that completely lacks intelligence and wit, really. You know, to me, the only redeeming value is Dwayne Johnson, and I hope he's getting paid a shitload of money, because he deserves it. You know, because it's the only thing that's kind of warm and charismatic and human in the whole film. Really,
I will agree with you on vulgar, for sure, and I think actually it is a problem with the film, because this is, of these kind of huge, stupid disaster movies, it's being aimed sort of at a slightly younger market, you can tell, right? But it has in it these jokes about teaching the chimp the middle finger, and there's this sex joke at the end where the chimp signs a...
It's so crass.
There is elements of real crassness, and actually the fact that they get into a film like this that's aimed at this market where these kids will see it, you know, it's like they're not bad enough to make it a 15, you know, but then it's also sort of irresponsible, like really, and they're not funny enough.
No. I mean, they really, you know, to me it lacked wit. I mean, it had a few good moments, like, you know, in a film like this, you know, in a way you can't go too far wrong, because they always have a few moments, right? Like, they have a few moments of that make you recoil, that, you know, that catch you by surprise. You know, some of the moments with the woof had that effect on me, where it feels like you're being swallowed by the woof, right? And I did recoil, you know.
You jumped an awful lot. The film's working on you at points.
And but not in ways I liked.
Really?
Yeah.
I think there was...
I was bored. So...
I know you're bored, and I was bored as well, but I still think that there were moments in the action where you really got good quality jumps, I think.
Well, I certainly jumped. I don't know about the quality.
I mean, I would say there were definitely moments of real threat. I'm thinking particularly when The Rock is being backed into a sort of corner and the giant crocodile thing is snapping at him and he's inches away. There's real threat there.
Yeah. There is. It does work on that way, I will agree. And there were also a few moments that were funny, you know, with... but you know, they involved eating people and, you know, watching animals do things that you don't expect them to do, you know. So there were moments of visual wit. So, you know, so those things I enjoyed. But I don't know if I'm getting old or if it's a problem with me or if I've seen too many of these films before. But what people think about Marvel films, which is that they're dumb and, you know, artless and so on, I think it's true of this film, really.
Much truer of this film than it is of those films.
Well, I mean, those films can be great. I'm a fan of those films, you know, but I think this is really crass. And there's something that I really found unappetizing about it, right? Like, so for example, you can't... these are filmmakers that lack the skill to kind of create tension out of the value of one human life, right? So they kill thousands and thousands and entire cities and rampages and, you know, and I kind of, you know, at a certain level, it just kind of stops working on me, right? Like, so you've got to put all of Chicago under threat. You've got to destroy Chicago, right? And you know when the crocodile monster was going up that building and, you know, and then the building comes down in a way like the Twin Towers, right? You know, and you think, like, do you really have to go this far to kind of create tension and suspense? In the meantime, people are dying left, right, and center, right? And then they try to compensate for that at the end with this absolutely icky moment of a mother embracing her child. There have been no mothers and no childs in the film up to this point, right? It's just been like people getting killed, like, you know, anonymous people getting killed left and right. I just kind of thought it was like, ugh.
I've got to say that I disagree with you on the people getting killed en masse. I it's clear that Chicago, these animals are heading towards Chicago, and up until they kind of get to the city, the few people that you've seen killed have been kind of hostile to the creatures, like they've been the army guys trying to take it down or whatever. So really we're talking about when it actually gets to the city, you're talking about killing innocent.
Yes.
I don't think the film does an awful lot. I mean, not in the way that actually those really big superhero movies have done in the past. Like when the Avengers, kind of everyone congregated in New York and the aliens were coming in, and then they did the same thing in the first Batman movie. Superman, Man of Steel. The same thing happened where they just leveled a city, and it was after that, that would have been 2011, 2012, that people started going, this is really fucked up. And then the films themselves started sort of going, okay, we're gonna try negotiating this level of destruction.
Well,
you
are speaking about the crassest of those films.
Of course I am.
Yeah.
But I think that those are the key examples, and where people really started to think about this level of destruction. I think actually Rampage clearly has the level of destruction, has the level of kind of buildings coming down and stuff. But I don't think it does anything about luxuriating or even really showing people dying very much. It does a little bit.
The wolf was chewing on the people in the bus.
Yeah, the wolf was chewing on people in the bus, but you didn't see it. He had his head in the bus, like it was a crisp packet or something. I think it was supposed to be sort of a joke, right? I think the film understands its own level of absurdity to a point.
I think that's true.
And I think that I didn't get the impression that the film was depicting people dying en masse. Really, I didn't think that.
Well,
I think it barely showed it, and if it did, it certainly didn't really luxuriate.
Okay, let's be clear in a way, because I know what you're saying, and I agree. I mean, it didn't just pick up a random child and like snap it in half or something.
Yeah.
But the film is making you feel that there are thousands and millions of people kind of dying at this moment, right? Like it's stepping over cars and bridges. It's destroying buildings. There must be people in there. I agree. Thousands of people in the building.
But the main focus is what people are always saying is about the evacuation. The most you see of the people is them getting evacuated.
I know, but actually the evacuation is not even part of the narrative of the film.
Well, it is. I mean, not the narrative, but they mention it and they show it, and they show much more people.
No, they only show the protagonist trying to escape. They don't show anything about evacuating people.
They do. They show boats on the river. As they're talking about evacuating Chicago, we've actually got to evacuate, and they realise they have to. You see these huge orange boats full of people getting out. The most you see of the general public in this film is of them escaping.
Or them trying to escape, but there's evacuating people is really not part of the narrative, and in fact, well, it is a little bit part of the narrative. So the general who's coordinating the operation refuses to do it at the beginning, and then has to do it at the end. But actually, you're not involved in any of that. You're involved with the Dwayne Johnson character. So to me, that all speaks like a disregard for life, for an entire city, really. And I didn't like it. It's kind of. It's all this wanton destruction, and actually with very little emotional resonance and with very little excitement.
Very little emotional resonance, absolutely. I think there was a certain amount of excitement. Like there were actually, some of the ways that the creatures kind of attacked the buildings and climbed within them. You're particularly thinking of that bit where the crocodile kind of climbs out of the side and then climbs up the side, and then the camera sort of zooms out and reframes. There's actually some. I don't want to go overboard on the visual quality of the film because there isn't very much, but there are moments where it looks, for want of a better word, cool. Like enjoyable to watch certain things, and I think the fact that I didn't really feel that people were under threat and the film was being wanton towards human life was actually part of that.
Well, okay, so let me reframe, because I largely agree with what you're saying, except that I'd be like completely bored and going ugh at the cinema, and then there'd be like some clever thing with a crocodile eye popping out of one floor of the building or something. You go, oh, that is cool, right? That's it. Yeah, but it was in the midst of all this.
Sure. There's not very much imagination, but there are actually quite a few moments. I do like particularly that shot you're talking about where he's running across the building's on its side, so he's running over windows, and the crocodile's beneath the windows looking up at him. Yes. Again, quite threatening,
Yes.
So it has its moments.
So anyway, and I hated all the characters. I hated the interplay at the zoo. It was just such a cliche. Dwayne with his dweeb assistant, and then the nerd assistant, and then the one who's scared, and you know. So I kind of, and I thought none of them were very good. So I thought as performances, none of them were good, and none of them were clever, none of them were funny. Like the only one who seemed natural in all of this, and really it is kind of,
The Rock.
you know, is The Rock, you know, whom I don't like. You know.
Oh, I like him very much. He absolutely suits this sort of film.
Well, he definitely suits this kind of film, and he's very charismatic in it and very relaxed in it, right? You know, so.
But of all these roles in which he's played essentially the same character, this is actually the worst. Like his character in this is the least interesting or likable. I mean, it's not that he's not likable, but it's so lazy the way it's put together.
Yes,
there's no.
I haven't seen San Andreas.
San Andreas was also directed by the director of this film, and I saw that, and I quite liked that. I don't remember again very much about it, and it was mostly about the spectacle. But I remember quite enjoying it. I don't remember very much else. And again, it would be wrong to say that I didn't enjoy this, but I was absolutely aware of its flaws and of the laziness of certain aspects of it. I did like the fact that, as I was saying to you, that they're actually, despite the fact it's kind of quite by the numbers in so many ways, it actually sort of is aware enough to, I think, deliberately start things and actually not follow through with them. So, for instance, those characters that you're talking about, his gang at the zoo, you think that they're going to be sort of the gang that goes through, and they just don't. They just go, right?
No.
Quite like that, because they were rubbish.
Yes.
And I also like that there's a team of sort of Navy SEALs or Special Ops or whatever who go into a forest to try and take this wolf down somewhere else, and they all die except for the leader. The leader's played by Joe Manganiello.
Manganiello, yeah.
He's the leader of these SEALs, let's say, and he's the last one surviving. So you think, all right, he's gonna join the Rock and his new friend, the scientist, but he just doesn't. He just dies again. That's sort of like you. I think that is starting a trope, especially because it's played by a name actor.
I know.
It's starting something that it goes, we're not going to do that.
His career must be in a very poor place.
Well, I don't know.
To take a role like that.
I didn't like that. I didn't like that the Rock teams up with this woman who is this scientist who has a kind of backstory or whatever, and
who is Naomi Harris?
Yes, Naomi Harris. And right at the end, when the day has been saved and it's all fine, the chimp who is the chimp is the Rock's friend. Sort of signs to him, are you to an item? He does it more vulgarly than that, but that's what he's saying. And so the film kind of comes up with this thing of like, yeah, we're friends, are we? In this sort of flirty way, which would be fine if there had been any of that before that. And actually, I did quite like the fact that before that, they weren't flirting. They were just fighting the things and trying to win. But then it's like, well, so why bring this in at the end? It makes no sense. You haven't set this up.
No,
very stupid.
It's really stupid.
But those last couple of minutes are rubbish. I mean, I've got to give you that. Jesus.
And actually, I thought Naomi Harris, whom I love, I loved her in the Bond films, is very badly looked after in this film. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yes, her hair and her makeup are terrible. Nobody's been paying attention to her as a performer.
Really?
Yes, is that not your feeling?
Well, I mean, it didn't occur to me. I mean, why are you picking up on her particularly, and not, for instance, another character, maybe Jeffrey Dean Morgan or The Rock? Why not their appearances?
Well, because she's a girl and she's meant to be a love interest, and usually these things are important in this kind of film. And I also wondered, if there wasn't like a kind of how to put it? I don't want to say that it's racist, but there's a kind of an uncertainty around the whole thing. So, for example, it's hard to imagine like a film of this kind with Harrison Ford or wherever, where actually that scientist wouldn't be a proper love interest, really. Or kind of think of like the Bond films, or think of other kind of action films like that. She's the central female figure aside from the villainess. And you'd think that they'd pay attention to how she looks, right? And I think there's very little attention that's been paid to how she looks in this film.
Okay, I mean, I don't know that I agree, just because I don't really know that I agree with the premise really of what you're saying, as opposed to the substance. I mean, I don't think there's a racism issue about kind of the way she's been looked after or the way that she's a love interest or not. Like I say, I liked the fact that she wasn't a love interest until the film tried to shoehorn it in right at the end.
Yes.
You know, I like the fact that she was just a character. She had her own motivations and reasons for wanting to do it, for wanting to fight or whatever. But there was no thing of like, oh, and while we're in a helicopter on our way to Chicago, let's just flirt. You know, there was none of that.
There was none
I
of
like
that.
that.
Well, the fact that, you know, I'm not sure I like it, because then, you know, they put it in at the end. So,
right.
You know, so it means that it's really underdeveloped, unthought through, and it makes you think of why.
But I think what it's laziness. It's not. I think there's a lot of lazy writing.
Well,
there are a lot of things where they try and do these funny lines, like when you've got the three monsters all fighting towards the end, and you've got the Rock in the middle of it. He manages to get the wolf to run away, and then the wolf sprouts wings and flies back, and that leads to this hilarious line where the Rock says, "Of course, the wolf flies." Like, that's not a funny line, right? It's not a quip. But that's sort of what it's being sold to you as. There's a bit where Jeffrey Dean Morgan's cowboy cop character, he gets the laptop off the nerdy brother, and the nerdy brother runs away and is immediately crushed by some great big boulder. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan says, "Ooh, that's a lot. That is a lot." That's not. Is that what?
Yes,
that's
not
no quip.
funny.
So it's lazy and unimaginative. As opposed, I don't think there's
a
charge of.
No, and I almost don't want to level it, but I think, for example, you know, that there are women in these types of films are just a function anyway, really. Like, very few of them get to play a character, right? You know, so kind of, I mean, their main thing is really to do action and look beautiful and, you know, and so on. So it just bothers me somehow that you have this lovely black actress and that she's not being attended to in the way, you know, that the female heroines in this type of film normally are. You know, that they look good is a given, right? And I actually think she wasn't lit properly. Her hair wasn't taken care of properly. She wasn't made up properly. She didn't look as good as, you know, Naomi Harris has looked in a lot of other films, and that bothered me.
I'd be certainly interested to open that up to see what other people think about that, because that tends to be the kind of thing that I don't want to sound like, oh, I'm so progressive, I don't even think about this sort of thing. Like, but that's not what I'm trying to say. It's just the kind of thing that, like, I'm not even sort of trained to really think about. I don't think about. I don't. Maybe there is something that I really need to learn to think about in that respect, because it is historically sort of important, the way women are portrayed and the way that they're made up more so than men, or in a different way.
Think of the second Mission Impossible film with
the John Woo one.
Yeah, the John Woo one with Tom Cruise and Thandie Newton. And think of how gorgeous Thandie Newton looks, and, you know, like how she's beautifully lit and she wears gorgeous clothes and her hair. I mean, mind you, she's meant to be like a cool spy and so on. But nonetheless, you know, in this type of movie, those things are important. And I know she's meant to be a doctor and so on, right? But, like, I can see what you mean. Although I don't particularly remember I don't remember Mission Impossible 2 particularly, but I can see what you're getting at. I think when it comes down to this is laziness, and it's just not the focus. And I think that's what it is. It's laziness. Yes.
It's a lazy film.
It's a lazy, crass, vulgar film.
I do like the fact that the military doesn't save the day. I think that there's this constant thing of how the military are going to send in bombs. That are going to send in the Moab, the mother of all bombs.
But this is a film in which there's been no thought given to anything.
Sure.
You know, because on the one hand, it condemns science, it condemns big business, it condemns the military. What is it for? You know?
Abs.
With not even abs?
I think there are three, for me, there are three major problems that this film has. One of them is that The Rock doesn't get his top off. And I know you said
does he usually in films, because I don't follow him.
I don't think he does, but he should.
Well, why should he?
Because he's 200-pound big man.
Well, who wants to see that?
Everyone.
Not me.
You should see him on Instagram. But so there's that. There's also the fact that they don't give The Rock the serum and make him, 80 foot tall.
I was hoping that they would.
That's what I want to see, right? Have you seen Honey, I Blew Up the Kid?
Yes.
The one where the baby becomes 80 foot tall and runs through Vegas.
Yes.
Imagine, that was a great, that was a great film. So imagine, you've got the only way we can save Chicago is if we inflate The Rock even more than he already is.
So he steps on people on his way to kill the wolf.
Yeah, no, he'd be careful. He's a lovely man. He's friendly, and I can't remember what the other problem was, but it's along those lines.
Anyway, it was.
But that would be a different film. But it would be more
I think for me, what was interesting was just, so I really was bored.
Yeah.
And then I would have all these jolts, right? And you think, well, how could you be bored and have all these jolts and be jolted in that way, right? And that's kind of what's interesting to me. Like, I haven't thought it through. I'm not sure. Because those jolts did work, But how could that be accompanied by so much boredom? It's, it's like an interesting thing. Maybe it's just like, the film is a jolt machine. And at a certain point, you're just bored of being jolted, really. Like,
I'm wary of describing it as that just because... there are films that really are like we're thinking about horror films when it comes to sort of jolts, and I really take offence to sort of jump scares for their own sake, or when it seems like the film can't do anything else, which is what you get in quite a few horror films, and that always to me feels like I'm sort of being punished or being sort of browbeaten into a feeling of fear, and I don't think that's what this film does.
No, it doesn't. But there are clear, like, so for example, the moment where they eat that soldier, where the way you do get jolted out of your seat, but then it's accompanied by boredom. So I know what you mean about the horror films, and this is quite different, but it does feel like it's mechanical and unimaginative, and it's got these. Almost like this formula that worked. Like, they knew that would jolt you, right? So that was a good idea. It achieved its intended effect, But then kind of the rest just bored you. Like,
Yeah, it comes down to character and the lack of any interesting characters, and really the plot is the simplest you've ever seen.
Yes.
It's, it is. The animals become big because a space experiment went wrong.
And they become mutants.
Yeah, they become big, they become mutants, they become very, very angry, they run into a city, and then they're stopped. And it is the simplest thing you've ever seen.
Yes.
God knows why they needed to base it on a video game. You don't need to base it on anything. You can come up with that on the back of a poster. So I think that's where...
Big hit.
Oh, sure, but having said that, I mean, I think there is actually... There's clearly a way of doing a film like this really, really well. If you get a decent action director with a bit of a sense of humour and some self-awareness, like, that's all this film needs, right?
Yeah.
And I think the moments where it demonstrates self-awareness are some of the best, where it demonstrates that it just knows it's silly. It doesn't do that enough.
No.
I'm not saying it should be a knockabout comedy, but...
Well, I would have liked a knockabout
I wouldn't have
comedy.
minded that, but I would have liked more moments where you kind of felt like the film really knew how silly it was being.
Yes. I mean, I do think that this is... what people who don't like the big summer blockbuster films accuse them all of being. And actually, to me, usually they're not, but this one really is.
Yeah. This one is what it is.
And it's not good.
Yeah, it's not very good, unfortunately. Which is a shame, because it squanders quite a fun idea, essentially. It squanders a very fun star, who I quite like, whether you do or not. I think there's a suitability of The Rock to this material.
He's the best thing in it, really.
Yeah, and there's a suitability of The Rock to this type of material.
Yes.
And so it's I can't be too disappointed in it, because I don't really know what I expected, but it does feel a little bit squandered, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's leave it here.
We're Eavesdropping at the Movies. We're on Twitter at Eavesdrop Movies. We're on Facebook, Eavesdropping at the Movies. Eavesdroppingatthemovies.com, where you can see all the episodes. And also we're on iTunes and SoundCloud, so you can listen to us.
And you can catch up. So, if you've missed some of these movies, but you've seen them on DVD or on Netflix, you can
all the episodes are still there.
Eavesdrop after the fact.
Yeah, we started the podcast back in August 2017, so there's a few to catch up on.
There's a backlog now.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
we've got a body of work.
A body of work. All right, let's end it here.
See you later.
We do have an oath. Ew.